Hello, fellow deal makers. Welcome to another episode of the Deal Scout. I'm your hostess, Susan Reilly, and I'm so glad you're joining me today. I have known today's guest for about 5 years, and I continue to be impressed with him. I think you will find his evolution from his first business at age 18 doing landscaping to now having mentored over 5,000 businesses. Yeah, wow, that's a lot. I think you will find him as fascinating as I do. Please welcome Carl Gould of Seven Stage Advisors. Welcome, Carl.
Hi, Susan. Thanks for having me.
I'm so glad you're here. This is great to see you today. Um, your first business, as I just said, was a landscaping business at 18, right? Um, what was your earliest and hardest lesson you think that you learned from that business?
Well, the one of the earliest and best lessons. So there's one that was really a great lesson that has taken me through to today, and it's been like a one of the top strategies I've used in my business. And then there was a very hard lesson I learned in year one. But I mean, when I got into business, I thought it was really complicated. I thought, wow, this is crazy. I can't believe, I'm not ready. I can't do all this. And I remember I went out on a handful of proposals, and I got the first three in a row. The very first, I was 3 for 3. I called my father up and I said, Dad, you're not gonna believe it. I'm like, I'm 3 for 3. I said, this business thing is easy. And he says to me, he's like, did you ask any of them why they said yes? And I was like, huh, why would I do that? I already have the business. Why would I? And he said, well, if you know why they said yes, then you can duplicate that. And I thought, oh, good idea, Dad. So I remember I went back to number two, I think it was, and I said to them, it was a partnership. It was a commercial landscaping job. I went back to them and I said, you took me on for this job, and I thank you for it. And if you don't mind me asking, why me? You told me that you had 5 other landscapers that you had inquired about, and yet I submitted a proposal and you said yes. Why did you do that? And so they were in the room together, and one of them's looking at the other like, what do you think? Should you tell them? Yeah. Almost like they didn't want to say the reason why. And one of them was like, yeah, go ahead, Weaver. He's already got the job. Go ahead. And so the guy walks up to me and he goes, you were the only one who showed up. And I said, what? In my head, I'm thinking like it was my clever proposal. Maybe it was the way my script, or I parked right in the perfect parking spot, made sure the truck was clean. And he said, yeah, we did. We called 5 contractors, and 3 of them called us back. 2 of them said they bring a proposal, but you're the only guy who showed up, and your price was pretty good, and you seem like a clean cut kid, and you'll work hard for us. And so we gave you the job. And I remember feeling not great. Because I had just, I was in school. I broke my leg. I had to leave school. I wasn't feeling great about myself. And I thought maybe I found something I can actually do. And, it turns out I get the job because I showed up. Now, I didn't realize how big of a compliment that was at the time, but I didn't take it as a compliment. I was like, oh man, I can't believe it. And then I realized 90% of business is showing up. Is I said I would do something. I did it. I tried my best. I'm sure it wasn't perfect, but I got the job. I got the job because I put the time in. And so that was one of the good lessons I got, which was great. That was a great lesson. Right after that, somebody who I did a project for referred me to somebody else, and they said, hey, my buddy's in trouble, bad contractor. They left. They need this job done so they can close on their building. They have tenants coming in right away. And I told them about your guarantee and how well it works and that you can come in really quickly. Told them all about it. I told them that I had done some jobs with you. So I think you pretty much are going to get this one, Carl. Just go ahead and meet with this person right away. So I called over there. I got a copy of the plans, did a proposal, thinking that the guy knew what my pricing was. I sent the proposal in advance of me getting there. I will never do that again. I got there and the guy just bit my head off and ripped me a new one. told me my pricing was off the reservation high, told me it was obnoxious, and that I clearly didn't understand business for a kid my age. You don't charge like this. This is not the way you do business, on and on and on. I got this entire lecture. And here I was being yelled at thinking, well, this is not how I thought this was going to go. So I should just take my lumps and go. And then he says to me, don't move. Sit there. I'll be right back. And as soon as he left the room, I'm like, I'm not sitting here. I'm getting the hell out of here. But I did. I sat there. He came back in 2 seconds later with a check for the deposit and the signed contract. And I thought, wait a minute, like
What just happened?
what just happened here? I said, I didn't know I was leaving alive. Now I'm walking out with a 50% deposit and a check. And what I learned was the guy had taken my guarantee program that had a 35% premium on it. And this guy didn't like the fact that he had to buy his way out of his problem with an 18-year-old kid. He was more mad at himself than me, which I realized later. But at the time, I was like, what was I thinking? And so, lesson learned, I don't ever send a proposal in advance. I make sure we have a verbal, or either a verbal agreement on the price, or I'm going to bring a proposal, leave the last page off that's got the price on it. I'll explain the whole thing, and then I'll hand you the price page. But I learned those two lessons very, very quickly in my business, and I've carried forward.
Right. And always show up.
And always show up. That
Always
was a big one.
Yeah.
I realized I was beating out people that were well established in business, 10 years, 20 years my senior. I was winning these jobs, and I realized, you know what, rather than waiting till Monday to swing by their property, I'm going to drive by there now. And rather than telling them I'll have a proposal in a week, I walked out to my truck. I bought this mobile proposal kit, and I bought these ink stamps so I can do everything right on the spot and write it up. And I would walk right back in, and I'm like, I can start in 2 days if you want to give me the job. And I would just win because I would out hustle them.
Interesting. Wow. Well, I mean, to start a business at 18 is pretty unusual. And yeah, that is a very unusual story. And to learn those really hard lessons that early on is pretty interesting. But I want to back up just a little bit and ask you, what do you think from your childhood made you want to become an entrepreneur, investor, and now business coach? What do you think got you there?
Yeah, well, both my parents were entrepreneurs. My mother was one of the very, very, very early network marketers. There was a company called Stanley Home Products, and I don't even know. I would guess they're still in business today. But my mother knew and when I say she knew everybody, I mean she knew everybody, because she sold these household cleaning products. Stanley Home Products, I think it's from Pennsylvania. They sold, and I can recite all the products because I used to go to all of my mother's demonstrations. So I used to pack all these boxes, go to somebody's home, and I'd set up the table with the degreaser and the bath brush and the Aqualon. And I mean, I could name them all and put them on the table. And my mom would go through and demonstrate, like, this is really good for this. This is really good for that. And I'd be doing my homework, but I heard her presentation so many times, I think I can give it today. And, people would sign up and they'd place orders for various products. And it was a network marketing company. And then after that, orders would come in, and I remember packing them and leaving them in our hallway, and people would come and put a check in the milk box that we used to get a delivery of milk in, and they would take their Stanley Home Products. And then anywhere I went, I just remember as a kid, anywhere I went, anyone I knew, they're like, "Oh, your mother's Nancy Gould? Oh, I've been buying that bath brush for years now." Now my mom has not done that in 30 years. 30 years. And I called a car dealership recently, and I had to get some service done. And it's not a car dealership I've dealt with before. So I call, and they say, "Oh, I'm going to put you on the phone with this guy, Paul." And then they said his last name. I'm like, I know that last name. So this guy gets on the phone, and we're talking. And I said, "Paul, I hope I'm not being too forward, but I think I know you. I think I've been to your house." He's like, "Slim chance of that. I don't recognize you." "Really? Does your mother use Stanley Home Products in her house?" He's like, "We do." I said, that's my mom. I said, I've been to your house. And he's like, to drop all this stuff up. So anyway, my mom was an entrepreneur. My dad was a computer consultant. He had his own practice. I've got a couple of brothers that are in their own businesses, two sisters that are an entrepreneur. I was just surrounded by it.
Mhm.
I'm not one of these guys that says, you can't have a job because for whatever reason. You pick your path. And entrepreneurship was right for me. And half of my brothers and sisters have jobs, half of them are entrepreneurs. Same thing with my aunts and uncles. So I've been surrounded by people who have been entrepreneurs or not, and entrepreneurship just it seemed right for me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I hear that with your mom and Stanley Home Products. That's funny that you can recite all the products line and lay it all out on a table. That's funny. I like that story. That's a great story.
So if any of you ever need someone to come do a product demonstration,
Right, right. If I need a bath
my mom,
brush, I know who to
if you need
call.
a bath brush, if you need a bath brush, I'm your guy. I'm your guy.
Right, right. Well, it sounds like you think that relationships are pretty important in business. Is that true?
I do. I do.
Yeah.
I didn't understand it as much as I do now. Because you start to add up the years we've known each other. Like you and I have known each other a decade. We've known each other when we've each had separate businesses, and things keep circling back around where, we've helped each other in a variety of ways, in variety of businesses. And I'm realizing the cyclical nature of relationships where, the people I meet today, I'm going to do business with likely for the rest of my business life. If I'm around, it's likely things are going to come back around. So I've learned that just the more people I know and the more people I can contribute to, is invaluable, quite frankly.
Well, okay. So with that, and looking back over your past and like when you were the young entrepreneur, what do you look back and think was your biggest relationship mistake that you made in business, and how did you recover from that?
That's a good one. So early on, I had very early in my career, when I started as a contractor, I didn't realize how in demand contractors are. When I started, it was 1985. We were in just as much demand then as they are today. Like everyone says, oh my God, there's a shortage of contractors. There always has been a shortage of contractors. And I never realized just how important that was. Well, I started this guarantee program early on in my second year. And I said, look, if you wanted me to start on time, finish on time, start by a certain date, finish by a certain date, because you had some time constraints. And I also guaranteed no contractor driven change orders. There'd be a senior manager on site and everything was guaranteed for a year. I didn't realize how popular that program would be. And so as a result, I was able to charge a 35% premium on my projects.
Mm.
Well, all of the builders I had done work for were like, well, one, we don't need this guarantee program you have, Carl. And, because we have some flexibility with our time. I can just have you start earlier. You take all the time you want, as long as you're done by this day. And I don't need to pay the 35%. Well, the part that I missed was that I had a second business under the same roof. I had a whole commercial division, but I didn't realize it. So my guarantee was outselling my standard 2-1. So I just stopped offering the standard. And it's not that I hurt any of the relationships. I just priced myself out of that arena. And had I looked back on this, that could have been a much bigger part of my business than the business that I had. Like the secondary business that I dismissed could have been 10 times as big as the one that I ended up building. And so I just looked, I didn't have someone like me. I didn't have someone like you. I didn't even know to ask for a coach or a guide or a mentor to, help me understand the long game of business.
Mhm.
And so there's some of these people I'm friends with today, but I could have had a more working relationship with them. And I missed out on that.
Well, you said before to me that you noticed early in your career that businesses often don't have strategies in place. Is
Yeah.
that kind of what you're meaning in this
Yeah.
example?
I think certainly most owner operated businesses, someone's really good at something. And so they do a project for someone they likely know. And then they get a few referrals from other people they know. And they have a business like mine where it's friends selling to friends. And that's what I was. I got a job, person liked the job. I worked with the neighbors or the buildings next, and the ones on the other side of the street. And it was almost all through word of mouth referral. I built my business mostly through that and through advertisement and networking. Those are the three that have always been my staples. And so yeah, what I learned was I was good at something, and I got referred to the people who needed what I was good at. And so I didn't really have a strategy. I didn't have an exit strategy, or what's my pricing strategy, or what's my marketing plan. I didn't write a business plan for 10 years. Didn't know to, you know. I went to school for accounting, so I understood how the numbers work, but I didn't really have a plan. And now as an advisor, almost everybody I meet, and I work with the top 4% of businesses, $1 million and above, almost none of them have a plan.
They don't have a plan. Well, is that the first thing you work on with them then, is making the
100%.
plan? Yeah.
Yeah, I created something called the 7 stages of business growth.
Right.
And stage one is strategic planning. And it's the first thing we do with every client. And there's an assessment we've given our clients since 1990 and we've gathered almost 300,000 data points on what clients have and what they don't. And less than 14% of the top businesses in the world have a business plan.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's remarkably low. Remarkably. They're just, what happens is they're really good at something. They get a project, they're busy doing it. And just about when they're about done, someone gives them a referral and they're like, oh, yeah, as soon as I'm done, I'll come over there. And then they come over here and they finish that job. And just about before they're done, oh yeah, I can help you too. And they're in it working, and they're like, this is working out great. I remember I didn't lift my head up from my business for 3 or 4 years, because once I got started, we got busy and I was just busy being busy, which was great. My business was growing, but it never occurred to me at the time to step back and say, am I in the right business? Am I doing the right work? Is there better work out there for me? I was doing well and had a 7-figure business, and I'm like, wow, I'm crushing it. I've never seen this much money in my life, let alone in 1 year. So it just never hit my radar to do it.
So what do you think then? Let's go into the business plan, talk a little bit more. What do you think, and what do you teach in 7 stage about creating that business plan?
Well, yeah, we talk a lot about how to differentiate yourself. One of the things that I learned by accident when I had my first company was when I offered this guarantee, which no one else was willing to offer. I differentiated myself very quickly. And I learned this because I would give every proposal. Someone came to me and said, I want you to do this project. No matter who you are, no matter what you asked, I said, here are 2 options. Here's the standard option based on everything you asked me to quote. And then here's what I think you're trying to accomplish. And oh, by the way, I guarantee the whole thing. And they didn't even ask for this, but this was outselling this 2 to 1. Right. And so when I started with that, it was working really well, but so I differentiated myself tremendously. And that was one of the lessons I carried through to when I was an advisor. So as an advisor, I go to the clients and I say, we need to differentiate, whether it's a guarantee or it's a promise or it's a product or there's some exclusivity or an intellectual property. You need to stand above and beyond, not just apart, because apart can mean you stink. Above and beyond. And as long as you do that, at least people can say, okay, there's you and there's everyone else. There's nothing like Tesla on this planet. There's nothing like it. Other companies have electric cars, and there is a little bit of a catch-up. But Tesla really stands alone. They've distinguished it. Apple really stands alone. Rolex really stands alone. And so they've figured out how to differentiate themselves. And so it's the first thing that we talk to about our clients is, number one, who is your client? Who likes you the most? Who's the best beneficiary of your services? And once we know that, let's design your business around that. And so that's one of the first things we do, because if you know your client and you know somebody who's as passionate about what you do as you are, and they have the means to take full advantage of that passion, they tend to be the highest paying, highest profitable, and the most pleasant clients to work with.
Mm-hmm.
And so we start there. You know, don't try to sell a Mercedes to a Subaru driver. Most Subaru drivers can buy a Mercedes, but they wouldn't be caught dead in one, right? Because they have a different value set. Mercedes-Benz driver can own a Subaru, but they wouldn't be caught dead in one.
Mm-hmm.
Who's right? They both are. They're just different kind of buyers. Mercedes and Subaru actually, during the mortgage meltdown of 2008 through 10 and that whole financial crisis,
Mm-hmm.
Subaru was the only major auto manufacturer in the United States who continued to grow their sales throughout that problem.
Wow.
They're the only one.
Mm.
And the reason why they did that is because they know their clientele so well.
Right.
They're not the biggest, but for their niche, they're the best. They're the undisputed leader in that area. Everyone else tries, but Subaru's got it. So we look at it and say, let's find out who's really passionate about your product or service, because we live in a world with 7 billion people in it. There's a market for everything. You just have to find who's as passionate about what you do as you are, and can you reach them and fulfill and deliver to them on a consistent high quality basis and profitably. That's the first thing we do with the client, and we find out from even established companies, they either have been selling to the wrong client, or they're not selling to their ideal client, or they're just doing to who's convenient. They're not selling the best products or the best services at the best price. We tweak those things almost immediately in just about every case.
How long does the process work with 7-stage advisors? How long does it take?
Well, we identify what needs to be done during a 3-week immersive deep dive into your business. We call it the discovery process. And then what we've learned over the years is that businesses grow in 18-month cycles. It takes 18 months to put the transformation in. During that time, you'll still grow 10 to 30%. You'll grow without even trying. Just being better at what you do, you'll grow. And then you hyper grow off of that in the second 18-month cycle. So you can double, you can triple within that, right? So you'll take a small leap, then a quantum leap, and then you'll go through these 18-month cycles of growth on your way up. It's kind of like a stair step up. So it takes us 3 weeks to identify it. Then depending on how fast the business can move, how quick, what resources do they have, not just money, but people and time and, access, and how quickly can they move to put these changes in, that'll determine how quickly they grow.
Okay. Yeah. So how do you help companies, how does 7-stage help companies execute? I mean, like how often are you together, and what kind of meetings do you have, and on what do you, everybody having the meeting or the top execs? How do you do that?
Yeah. Well, we meet with when we do our strategy, we meet with the top executives in the beginning. We interview everyone in the company, but we meet with the executives because they have the ultimate decision-making power. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the items that we are suggesting are either counterintuitive or seem risky at the outset. And so somebody's got to take a leap of faith. And most people deriving a paycheck from the business are not willing to risk that, risk that on these clowns that are talking about something I've never heard of. It's usually the owner who's like, all right, I've read about this, little scary, let's go. Right. So we start out with the executive team almost always, because they're the decision makers and they are the ones that will help us along the way, help us get started. And then but they're not the implementers. So we spend most of our time coaching and guiding and mentoring the staff, the management team, and some of the implementation staff and the line workers, because ultimately they're the ones that are going to bring the owner's vision to life. The owner can have a plan, but it's not going anywhere without the team. And so we play a dual role. We're kind of a bolt-on C-suite or advisory board, but we are almost interim level managers with the team to help them understand how to take that idea or that theory or that hypothesis and integrate it into the company on a daily basis. And so we are very hands-on with our clients, and we help them implement into the business.
Mhm. When you and I first met, that, as you said, that was a long time ago, and I had a business that was acquired by a business that you were advising. And I was then in business development for the company that acquired my business. Anyway, long story. I worked with some of your advisors. I remember I had weekly calls with them, and
Yeah.
I had two different guys over a period of time, but two different advisors. But yeah, they were extremely helpful. They gave me lots of good feedback on what I was doing and what I should be doing and what I could do better. It was really, really good. Good arrangement and really good learning experience.
Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad. Yeah, the advisors we choose, in order for somebody to work with a client, they had to have bought, sold, run, owned, or advised a business larger than the one that you're trying to build. So that way we can always share with you what the road ahead is. And so we internally, it's a bit of our internal joke, is that we play the role of Christmas future, right? So this is, if you remember from the Charles Dickens A Christmas Carol, our job is to explain to you, based on your current course, here's what life is going to be like if you go down this course. Here's one we're suggesting. Here's what life will be like if you go down that one. And so we give you options for you to choose.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah. Do you think that is the differentiating, there's that word again, the differentiating thing with 7-stage advisors from other consulting firms?
It's definitely part of it, because most of our clients tell us that there's no one else that can jump in and is willing to implement. There's plenty of people out there to tell you what they think you should do. Oh, Susan, you know what your problem is? You know what you should do? Well, a lot of people could tell you that. All right. Well, now that you've identified it, you're so confident about your advice. How about you jump in here, help me implement, and then we'll see if your advice was so good. Well, that's what we do, is we're confident that we're giving you the right direction. And so we jump in and we're like, no, this is going to work. And so we're going to show you how to implement this. So where we differ is we will help you on the what is it you need to do, but we stay there, roll up our sleeves, and help you with the how.
Does 7-stage ever provide capital for companies that need that to grow?
We have been the conduit to that. For example, we've have a number of business owners who have said, hey, I'm looking for alternate investments, or I just sold my business. I see how you do your work. If you have any clients that are looking for capital, I trust that, if you're in there managing them, they'll utilize the money the right way. So let me know if you ever need an investor. And so, yeah, we've been the conduit to capital before.
Okay. Good. Well, that's good to know. There's lots of businesses out in the world that obviously everybody needs money, to get somewhere, but they need the expertise and they need the direction too. So that's a good thing that you can be the conduit for the money, and you can certainly do the direction. So that's a good thing. So, okay, well, I want to change gears now because we're almost running out of time, but I want to ask you about you personally, because after all these years, I have to admit that I really don't know a whole lot about you. Although I know your lovely daughter, Vanya, who helped me a couple years ago with my social media and did a terrific job. Do you have other kids?
I do. I have an older son and an older daughter. So 3 kids in total.
Yeah.
2 daughters and a son. Vanya is the baby of the 3.
And Vanya just is off to college. Is she in her second year now? Is that right? Or third?
First year. She's got 3 more weeks. She's in finals right now, and she'll be heading into her sophomore year.
Oh,
my son Sean is in the military. He's finishing his 7th year, and this will be his final year. He's retiring from the military this year. He is as we speak patrolling our border, our southern border. And my oldest daughter, Courtney, is a social worker, and she graduated with a master's from Rutgers in social work. And now she's making her way in life as a social worker.
Wow.
And a therapist and a counselor.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. That's great. And what's your wife's name?
Chandra.
Chandra. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Chandra. So what are you passionate about personally? What do you love to do?
Well, for me, I've always enjoyed going to live events. I like going to see live music, concerts, festivals. I just love the energy around it, on so many levels. So I'm a big. I remember in high school, a buddy of mine, we went to like every concert you could imagine, and I still do that today. And like I said, I like to go to live events, so that's pretty cool. I'm a big. I like to be outdoors, so do a lot of hiking, play golf. I'm passionate about boating and yachting, so I like to do that. My dad was a big time offshore fisherman, and we had boats. He had a boat growing up, and or boats growing up, and so I caught that bug, and so I do boating today. And Vanya and I actually we have a tradition that every year we do a cold plunge, like our own version of the polar bear plunge, and we just did one last week, and circulated the video. Everyone came back to us and said, "You're nuts. Why would any sane person do this? Why do you do this?" And for all of you biohackers out there, you know all of the benefits of cold exposure, but we do it for fun. We do it every year. So yeah, I so those are things that I really enjoy. And 35 years ago now, I can't believe that, but 35 years ago, I was at a nutrition seminar, had terrible allergies at the time, some asthma symptoms, and somebody encouraged me to just try out a plant-based diet and see what happens. And what do you know? My allergies cleared up. I felt so much better. And so since then, I've become very much an enthusiast around health and wellness and biohacking and supplements and, you know, all sorts of exercise and, breath work, you name it, if it helps with longevity and anti-aging and living longer and a more balanced life, I'm into that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. Well, out of curiosity, where were you for this cold plunge, though? I have to know.
So this was the Jersey Shore,
Jersey
Long
Shore.
Branch, New Jersey. So for those of you outside of New Jersey, that this is near Asbury Park, Bruce
Okay. Bruce
Springsteen and John
Springsteen,
Bon
right?
Jovi land.
Yeah.
Yeah, so right near Asbury Park, Long Branch is one of the beaches we have, and yeah, it was just early morning, 40 something degree water, and it just seemed like the thing to do.
Ooh, man, that's cold. Well, good for
Yeah,
you.
and everyone's invited for next year. You're
Oh,
all invited because we're
thank
going to
you.
do it again
Thank
next
you.
year too.
I'll put it on. I'll put it on my calendar. Oh my
Make
goodness,
sure someone else hears about that, but not me.
that's so cold. That's so cold. I can't imagine. It has been such a pleasure talking to you today. And I'm really glad that you are a guest on the Deal Scout, Carl. Thanks for being here. I'd like to invite you back, though, because I would like you to come back and talk to our Dealmaker audience about the types of businesses your clients are looking to invest in or merge with or acquire, and or the types of businesses your clients may be looking to sell. Would you be up for coming back?
Would love it. Would love it. That's a big part of what we do with our clients is helping them buy and sell and negotiate. It's one of the more fun things that we do. So would love to come back and share and contribute whatever best practices and experiences that I've had.
Perfect. That'd be great. So stay tuned, deal makers, for some more conversations with Carl and with the businesses that he works with that you can maybe find something that works for you as in making a deal. So I invite you also, listeners, to reach out if you have further questions for Carl and the 7-Stage Advisors. Click the link below or find the link in the show notes. And as you know, I'm always on the hunt for other guests that are fun and energetic and have all the charisma and charm of Carl. Love to have these conversations and where we can learn more about scouting deals, because everybody loves a good investment, right? So if you'd like to appear on the Deal Scout or talk about your deals, I'd love to hear from you. Reach out to me at susan@thedealscout.com, or again, click the link below. And of course, if you enjoyed this content, hit subscribe. That'd be great. And that's it for now. Have a terrific day, and we will see you again. Thank you again, Carl.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, and we'll see you soon. This is Susan with the Deal